Hello everyone, thank you for always accompanying my channel. Today, I'm bringing you another development in the heartfelt yet challenging love story of single mother Lythieuca and police officer Hoai. After many months of working far from home, Hoai never stopped giving his all. At his new post, he faced countless difficulties, long trips into remote villages, sleepless nights on duty, and even moments where he had to risk his life to complete his mission. All of this not only proved his strong sense of responsibility but also earned him recognition from both his colleagues and his superiors. And then, good news came. In light of his remarkable achievements, his leaders decided to grant him a short leave. For Hoai, this was not just a reward, it was a precious opportunity to return to the loved ones he had missed so deeply. What made it more special was that Hoai chose to keep his plan a secret, not telling Hawa in advance. He wanted to turn his homecoming into a sweet surprise. Just imagining Tony running into his arms, or Hawa's eyes widening in shock before filling with joy, made his heart race with anticipation. And just as he hoped, the moment the door opened, the little house lit up with happiness. Tony shouted with excitement, while Hawa stood frozen, overwhelmed with emotion. In that reunion, all of Hoai's exhaustion from the front line seemed to melt away, leaving only the warmth of love and family. But his leave was short. After these fleeting days of reunion, will they have enough time to share all their feelings, to fully savor their happiness before Hoai must set off again? And what other surprises await them in these few precious days? Stay with us through this episode to experience every layer of emotion. Today, just like every other day, Hawa woke up while the morning mist still lingered. The little house nestled in the garden was quiet, except for the distant crow of roosters blending with the soft breeze rustling through the trees. She slipped on a thin jacket, neatly tied her hair, and stepped out into the garden. Beneath the mist, rows of lush green vegetables, plump gourds, and ripe red tomatoes gleamed peacefully against the leaves. Hawa bent down, carefully harvesting each piece of produce, placing them neatly into her old bamboo basket, preparing to bring them to market. Yet, within these familiar motions, sorrow quietly seeped in. Ever since Hoai had gone away on duty, every morning felt incomplete. The garden was the same, the work was the same, but the joy was no longer whole. Each time she lifted the heavy baskets, she remembered his strong hands once there to help, his gentle smile teasing her until her weariness melted away. Now, all of it remained only as memories, sweet, yet aching. Hoai's words of encouragement still echoed in her mind. "Don't worry, everything will be fine. You've got me." But now, the little house was left with only Hawa and Tony. She knew she could not afford to be fragile. For her child, and for her faith in the man far away, she had no choice but to be strong. Every night, after Tony had fallen asleep, she would sit by the dim oil lamp, quietly writing a few lines in her journal, pouring her longing into words, as if to hold on to his presence through ink and paper. She believed that, at his faraway post, Hoai too was thinking of them. Perhaps, during his long night shifts, he also looked up at the same sky, the same moon, the same stars, carrying unspoken feelings in his heart. Hawa trusted that, the moment he was granted leave, he would find a way to return, to hold her and their son close once again. As dawn slowly swept away the mist, Hawa lifted her gaze toward the clear blue sky. In her deep eyes glimmered longing, faith, and a spark of hope. She whispered to herself, "Just a little more patience, and surely he will come back." The road ahead was still full of challenges, but their love, though separated by distance, continued to burn, like a small flame that warmed her soul through the long lonely days. And Hawa believed that one day, her waiting would be rewarded, with a tight embrace, and a true reunion. After a busy morning in the garden, Hawa carried 2 heavy baskets of vegetables to the market. The early sunlight was still soft, with dewdrops clinging to the leaves, making each bundle of greens glisten with a fresh, emerald glow. Inside her baskets were all kinds of produce from her garden: crisp sweet mustard greens, plump red tomatoes like jewels, golden pumpkins, and cucumbers still carrying the scent of fresh soil. Every item was the result of her diligent hands and patient heart. It didn't take long for people to gather around once she laid out her goods. Villagers praised her vegetables for being fresh, clean, and naturally sweet, untouched by chemicals. Familiar customers and new faces alike came to buy, and soon, her baskets were nearly empty. Holding the small bills still crisp with the scent of paper, Hawa let out a quiet sigh of relief. It was not just the fruit of a hard morning's work, but proof that her daily efforts could sustain life for herself and Tony while Hung was away. On the way home, as the sun climbed higher and its rays grew harsher, she unexpectedly met her foster mother, who had just come from another village market. Frail in figure, her conical hat shading half her face, yet her gentle eyes and warm smile filled Hawa with comfort, like finding a safe haven for her heart. They sat together on the old bamboo bench in the porch, always warmed by family conversations. As they spoke, her foster mother suddenly mentioned that before leaving for his post, Hung had visited her and said, "If you have the chance, please visit Hawa. She'll be lonely on her own. I may not be there, but I hope you can help ease her solitude for me." Hearing this, Hawa's eyes brimmed with tears. It was as if someone had just knocked softly on her heart, stirring waves of emotion. Even amidst his heavy duties, Hung had thought of her, worried about the loneliness she might face. That thoughtfulness made her feel the depth of his love more clearly, and her faith in their bond grew stronger. Her foster mother held her hand and gently asked about her health and the farm work, then advised her softly, "If you ever face difficulties, don't hesitate to come to me. I may be busy with my small shop and can't visit often, but you mustn't think you're alone. I see you as my own daughter, just call, and I'll be there." Those sincere words felt like a soothing breeze that swept away part of the heaviness in Hawa's heart. She clasped her foster mother's wrinkled yet warm hands, nodding slightly, her lips trembling with emotion. In that moment, the emptiness Hung had left behind was temporarily filled with love, care, and a bond rooted in kindness. After a while, her foster mother stood to leave, leaving behind the quiet little yard. Her figure grew smaller in the distance along the village path, while Hawa turned back into the house. Tony had been at school since morning, leaving her alone with only the sound of the wind slipping through the shutters and the rustle of leaves outside. The silence deepened her longing for Hung, yet at the same time, her heart felt warmed. She knew that, despite the distance, there were still people who cared, still a home to return to, and, above all, still a love worth waiting for. As for Hung, in recent days he had been giving his all without rest. In a recent case, thanks to his decisiveness and strong sense of responsibility, he achieved a great success, contributing to the safety and order of the region. Beyond that, Hung actively joined his teammates in traveling to remote villages, patiently educating the locals about family planning and the dangers of underage marriage. At first, many villagers were hesitant, even distrustful, but with his sincere voice and dedicated manner, Hung gradually won them over. Their nods of agreement and smiles of understanding became proof of the impact his work was making. When his superiors heard the reports, they were deeply satisfied. Not only did they praise Hung's dedication, but they also especially recognized his efforts in bringing the law closer to the people. Then came the good news: leadership officially approved a short leave for him. The moment he received that decision, Hung's heart seemed to burst with joy. Happiness surged through him, for it meant he would soon see Hawa, the woman he longed for every day, and his little son Tony, his pride and hope. All the months of separation, all the sleepless nights, now felt as though they were being rewarded. After expressing his gratitude to his superiors with all sincerity, Hung quickly wrapped up his unfinished work. He neatly filed documents, tidied his desk, and returned to the dormitory. There, he prepared only the simplest things: a few folded clothes, the handkerchief Hawa once gave him, and a small notebook he often used to jot down his thoughts on lonely nights away from home. Looking at the compact backpack on his bed, Hung's heart was filled with indescribable anticipation. He pictured Tony's joyful shout when seeing him, imagined the astonished yet radiant look in Hawaii's eyes as she opened the door. Just the thought made him smile unconsciously. That longing pushed his steps to quicken more than ever, driven by the desire to hurry home, to return to the loved ones who were waiting for him. While packing his belongings, Hung happened to glance at the small calendar he always kept in his backpack. His fingers stopped at a special date, the birthday of Hawa. His heart sank for a moment. According to his work schedule, he would likely have to return to his unit on that very day, unable to be with her and Tony. The thought weighed heavily on him, for more than anyone, he understood how much loneliness and sacrifice Hawa had endured during their time apart. But almost instantly, an idea sparked in his mind. He wanted to make up for it, to turn this short leave into a memory the three of them would never forget. If I can't be with her on the exact day, then I'll bring her an early birthday, a surprise, one that's truly complete, Hung thought to himself. When he arrived back in his hometown, before heading straight to Hawaii's house, he stopped by a familiar pastry shop. Behind the glass case lit with warm lights, dozens of cakes decorated in every color stood on display, but Hung searched only for something simple and elegant, the kind he knew she would love. He chose a cake covered with smooth white cream, adorned with tiny sugar roses, and carefully had her name written across it. Not stopping there, Hung visited the market to pick up some of Hawaii's favorite foods: fresh free-range chicken, a bundle of crisp green mustard greens, and even a packet of seasoning she once said makes the soup smell so good. He could already picture her smile when she realized he remembered even these small details, filling his heart with warmth. As for Tony, Hung didn't forget to stop by the toy store, where he carefully chose a small battery-powered toy car. He lingered for quite some time, making sure the gift would spark his son's joy. In Hung's eyes, the love for Tony had only grown deeper with each day of separation. With the gift bag in hand and the cake box held tightly against his chest, Hung was both nervous and excited. He imagined that evening, the dim glow of the oil lamp lighting up the humble little house, Tony scampering happily around the table, Hawaii's surprise when the cake was placed before her. And in that moment, he would simply sit back and watch the two of them, soaking in the simple, yet utterly complete happiness of being together. When Hung glanced at his watch, he smiled. He knew it was almost time for Tony to be dismissed from school. He quickly took out his motorbike and rode to the school gate. From afar, as soon as he spotted the little boy in his tiny uniform trotting outside, Hung's heart tightened with emotion. At first, Tony froze, his round eyes staring at the familiar man he had only heard about for so long. A brief moment of astonishment, then suddenly, his face lit up with a radiant smile. His little legs dashed toward Hung, arms outstretched, babbling joyfully in words not yet clear but overflowing with love. Hung knelt down, arms wide, and swept his son into a tight embrace. The boy pressed his milk-scented cheek against his father's shoulder, babbling softly in sounds only the two of them could understand. To Hung, they were the sweetest sounds in the world. Lifting Tony high into the air, he spun him around, as if to erase all the long distances of separation. His face shone with happiness, while Tony's tiny hands clung tightly around his father's neck, unwilling to let go. On the way home, Hung rode with Tony nestled close, whispering as though his son could understand every word. He told him about the surprise waiting that evening, about the sweet birthday cake set aside for Mommy. Tony didn't answer with words, but his bright eyes and instinctive little nods were enough for Hung to believe his son was excited to share the secret. When they returned, the house was already perfectly prepared. The table was neatly set, the birthday cake placed proudly at the center. The little kitchen was filled with warmth and fragrant food, but one thing was still missing: Hoai. Hung stood at the doorway holding Tony, both father and son gazing down the familiar path. Hung's heart raced with anticipation, while the boy clutched his father's shirt and stared curiously into the distance. Together, they waited for the moment the door would open, to see the face of the woman they both loved, first surprised, then overflowing with happiness. When Hawa reached the gate, she froze for a moment. The little house, usually so quiet, was now radiant with light and warmth. A golden glow spilled from the windows, ribbons hung simply yet tastefully across the room, and the dining table was neatly set with dishes filling the air with a mouth-watering aroma. At the center stood a small, delicate birthday cake, its candles flickering, casting a magical glow. Hawa raised her hand to cover her mouth, her eyes wide in astonishment. Her heart raced, half startled, half thrilled. When her gaze fell on Hung, standing there with his gentle smile, and Tony nestled in his arms, cheeks flushed with joy, her emotions surged and overflowed. All the days of separation, all the sleepless nights and longing were soothed in that single instant. Unable to hold back, she rushed forward and wrapped her arms around Hung. Her embrace was trembling, urgent, yet overflowing with love. His familiar warmth spread over her, dispelling the cold and loneliness she had borne for so long. His strong shoulders and steady arms were still the safest place, the only place she could lean on. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but her smile shone bright with happiness and gratitude. Though still too young to understand everything, Tony clapped his hands excitedly, his eyes sparkling, babbling happily as if to share the joy with his parents. The sight of the three of them together filled the modest little home with warmth and life. Soon after, they gathered around the meal Hung had lovingly prepared. On the table were simple but heartfelt dishes: a fragrant bowl of mustard green soup, a plate of golden boiled chicken, and fresh vegetables bursting with the taste of the countryside. Hoai ate while constantly praising the food, her eyes glowing with happiness. Each bite reminded her of Hung's careful hands in the kitchen, filling her heart with emotion. The most memorable moment came when the small candles were lit on the cake. Their shimmering light reflected on all three faces, sparkling in Hoai's tearful eyes. Hung's deep voice began to sing a birthday song, while Tony chimed in with babbling words. The tune wasn't perfect, but to Hoai, it was the sweetest music she had ever heard. She closed her eyes, pressed her hands together, and whispered a simple wish: may these moments last forever. That night, the little house glowed with laughter and light. For Hoai, it was the happiest, most peaceful evening she had known in a long time. All the weariness, loneliness, and silent tears of the past melted away, replaced by the overflowing joy of reunion. Most of all, it was the first time in her life she had ever celebrated a true birthday, not lavish, not grand, but filled with the truest, most genuine love. After dinner, the three lingered together. Hung shared stories of his work, his comrades, his long treks into distant villages to spread awareness. Hoai listened intently, her eyes shifting between worry and pride. Tony played happily with his new toy car, crawling into his mother's lap, then leaning against his father. That cozy scene made the little house feel like the safest, warmest home in the world. And as night deepened, the oil lamp's soft golden glow bathed them in gentle light. Still, none of them wanted to part. Hoai rested her head on Hung's shoulder, smiling softly. In her heart, that night was more than a birthday, it was a sacred milestone, a memory of love, of family, and of waiting rewarded. It was a flame she would carry with her, to keep strong through the distant days yet to come. Yet, moments of happiness can never last forever. The days of reunion passed as quickly as a fleeting breeze. Just yesterday, Hung was still seated at the table with Hoai, listening to Tony's bright laughter and seeing her radiant smile. Yet today, he must once again prepare for the long road ahead, returning to his post in a distant land full of challenges. The little house, so recently lit with joy by his return, will soon fall quiet once more. At the doorway, Hoai and Tony will stand silently, watching his figure fade away down the endless road. When the door finally closes, only the sound of wind through the shutters and the rustle of leaves will remain, together with the heavy weight of longing. Hoai tells herself she must be strong, that she will wait with courage. But deep inside, her heart still longs for the steady shoulder she can lean on. Each night, cradling her child in her arms, her eyes drift toward the far horizon, where Hung endures his duties. And Hung, though outwardly resolute and strong, carries within him an emptiness, an aching longing he cannot put into words. Can their love, a love stretched across distance and trials, truly bind their hearts, helping them overcome the loneliness of separation? Or will geography, life's hardships, and the weight of responsibility build an invisible wall between them? The answer lies ahead. Only time will prove the true strength of this love. But one thing is certain, Hung, Hoai, and Tony are living each day with faith and hope, that their waiting will one day be rewarded. Stay tuned for the next episode, to continue following their journey, one filled with hardship, but also with warmth, hope, and moments that will move every heart.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến với mọi người câu chuyện tình yêu của mẹ đơn thân Lý Hoài Ca và cảnh sát Hùng. Và mọi người thân mến, thì như mọi người cũng đã biết thì ở trong tập trước, mẹ đơn thân Lý Hoài Ca và cảnh sát Hùng đang tạm thời xa nhau. Tuy nhiên thì do Hùng đã lập được công lớn, Hùng đã phá được một vụ án khá là nguy hiểm, cũng như là trong thời gian vừa rồi thì Hùng đã rất tích cực trong việc tuyên truyền để vận động người dân thực hiện đúng pháp luật, cũng như là không có kết hôn trước khi mà chưa đủ tuổi. Điều đó khiến cho cái khu vực mới đến thì có cải thiện tốt hơn rất nhiều, và cấp trên đã đặt cách cho Hùng được nghỉ phép trước. Và bây giờ thì Hùng đang trên đường về thăm Hoài Ca và Tony, và nhân lần này thì anh đã tổ chức sinh nhật cho Hoài Ca, và điều đó làm cho Hoài Ca vô cùng bất ngờ và hạnh phúc. Đây cũng là sinh nhật đầu tiên trong đời của Hoài Ca, và Hoài Ca cảm thấy vô cùng hạnh phúc. Vậy thì chuyện gì sẽ xảy ra tiếp theo? Mời mọi người đón xem vào tập sau nhé.